All right, Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. I pray everyone is doing great. Welcome to our Islam 101 class. Thank you, as always, week in and week out. You guys are taking time out to join us, and I greatly appreciate that. So, thank you all very much for taking time out and joining us, and of course, everyone online as well joining. Thank you so much. Just a friendly reminder, we do have lunch and coffee and all the good stuff in the back. I just want to say thank you again to all the volunteers that step up week in and week out to help out. Thank you so much. Many of them behind the scenes that we don't even know about that are helping with, if it's not the live streaming, getting that set up, the food, the delivery of the food, the tables, the chairs, just making sure that we all have a great experience. And that's amazing. And so I want to thank all the volunteers. So may Allah reward you and bless you all. Thank you. Number two is, of course, a very important topic, and I'm very glad that we're able to cover this topic. As you know, we're right around the holiday time, right? Or different holidays, different celebrations that are happening, and particularly for our new Muslim family members, it's a very challenging time, right? Starting from, of course, Halloween and all the way till probably past New Year's, Easter, all that stuff. So, Sheikh Tarik and I were just discussing, and the topic that he would love to talk about, and I'm very thankful that he took time out to do this, is just navigating through the holiday time, right? Particularly maybe for our new Muslim family members. So it's a very important topic, and it's a topic that needs to be addressed, and just so that we have some direction on how to approach this. And again, as we had mentioned, and we talked about this a number of times, sometimes you hear differences of opinions, right? And that's okay. And everyone that might be on this table, they might have a difference of opinion on certain matters, right? But it's really good to hear about these opinions, right? And just gives us some more direction. So should you hear something different from what's being talked today or at any time, feel free to let's talk about it, right? Especially with those that are knowledgeable, like Sheikh Tariq, who's here today as well. So just wanted to make sure I say that as well. Sheikh Tariq, for those of you, if you're new, most of you are not new, you know Sheikh Tariq, but I just like the highlight of my day when I get to see him, because this is twice in 1 week. We got to see him on Friday. May Allah bless him, because he had a really rough Friday, right? A lot of driving, and maybe he'll talk about that a little bit, but that's a blessing that we have here at IFC. People like Sheikh Tariq, who supports this program so much and believes in this cause of the invitation to people about Islam, but then particularly the support system that comes with it, which is so crucial and so important, which is neglected in, unfortunately, many communities. We're blessed to have Sheikh Tariq and many other people that are supporting this program. So I don't want to break his back by praising him, but I personally very much appreciate that, and him taking time out from his family and to be here from South OC. We greatly appreciate that. So Sheikh Tariq, of course, is the religious director, the Imam at OCIF, Orange County Islamic Foundation in Mission Viejo. He's been supporting our program, and he's been helping many different communities as well. So it's always an honor and a privilege to have him with us. And you can't look at that smile, like you can't. That smile is just gold right there. So may Allah bless you, reward you. Thank you so much. I just put you on the burner, man, just like praising you, but may Allah reward you. I just greatly appreciate it. Floor is all yours, Sheikh. May Allah reward you and bless you. Forgive me for my shortcomings.
Forgive me for my shortcomings. I was smiling because, as Brother Jamal was saying, he's taking time away from his family to be here. The only reason I could be here is because my wife isn't upset that I'm coming here. So when she becomes upset, that's a different story, because this is technically my day off, and that is their right. So, alhamdulillah, I try and tippy toe around the challenges and the responsibilities of life, because it's my privilege first and foremost to be with this group. So jazakumullah khair. Now the topic, navigating the holiday season. We're coming on the holiday season. We know for the next few months there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of culture that comes with that. America, from January to the beginning of October, is pretty dull in terms of the culture. You just go to work, you come home. You go to work, come home. There's not much going on. But man, as soon as October comes in, the fall season comes in. The stores start changing. You have the fall, autumn color. You have Halloween decorations. You have the pumpkin patches. There's a lot going on, right? And it's pretty fun stuff. Really fun stuff, especially for our children. And so how do we navigate that? Well, I would like to acknowledge something that you could say I always wish to feel this feeling. And that is a feeling you all feel. And that is I come from a certain culture, I come from a certain upbringing, and now I have left that for the sake of Islam to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so you're in the struggle between, how do I shed that previous culture and the upbringing that I had? And why I'm jealous of this is because this is a very similar challenge that the companions had to go through. So this is some area where this is an area where you all overlap with the companions, the best generation to ever walk this earth, in a way that me, myself, born Muslim, I don't really overlap with. I don't know what that feeling is. I don't have that challenge. And you might be thinking, I mean, that's not a challenge you exactly want, and I understand that. And I say, Alhamdulillah. But the idea is, you have a challenge that, if you overcome, will help you build iman. It helps you build a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so I see that as something very unique that you all have to deal with that I don't, or I didn't. And that's a type of advantage for you all if you undergo it the way the companions underwent it. So you find that the companions had to shed their previous culture, and sometimes the fear of their previous culture takes them to kind of an opposite extreme. So you have this internal feeling where, man, I want to participate in the things that I grew up doing. In the Arabic language, there's a saying that someone who was raised on something, like they grew up doing something, they will grow old doing that thing. So if you had a habit when you were young, something that you used to always do, you will continue to do that in your old age. Right? And even if you let go of those habits, you'll always find every now and then it comes back. It comes back and it wants to take you. So let's say, for example, you grew up watching football, watching sports. You and your buddies, when you were teenagers, used to get together, you used to watch the games, and it was a big part of your life. Now you get older and you get married, you have kids, you have bigger responsibilities. You realize that watching sports is really not a priority in your life. But as you continue to grow older, you'll always feel like, man, what's going on? Let me check the scores in the game. Old habits die hard. And so the companions went through something like that. And so sometimes they would kind of get back in their old ways. They would view someone from the pre-Islamic paradigm of social constructs. And so they would view someone based on their tribe, based on their background, based on who their parents were. And that's something Islam came to abolish, to change. You don't look at someone in terms of their ethnicity, in terms of their parents, their tribe, their gender. You don't look at them in that regard. You look at them in terms of their relationship with Allah, in terms of taqwa. But they always had this tendency to kind of go back and view someone that way. And so it was a constant struggle. And sometimes when they let go of something, when they shed a part of their previous culture, it took them to the opposite extreme of where I have to put this major red line between me and that. And that would lead to them taking on certain responsibilities that Islam doesn't ask them to. So, for example, the meat. So that was a big problem back then because the slaughter of the polytheists was 100% haram. You can't eat that meat, period. Why? Because of the polytheistic rituals that came with slaughtering meat. And so anytime they'd have meat, they always hesitated. I don't know if I can eat this. No, I'm just going to put it aside. I don't want to eat it. I don't want to eat it. So Allah comes and says, وَمَا لَكُمْ أَلَّا تَأْكُلُوا مِمَّا ذُكِرَ اسْمُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ. So what's wrong? What's going on? If a meat was slaughtered, an animal was slaughtered using the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then eat from it. Allah has made it permissible. So you find that those who have a certain background that is non-Islam, when they enter Islam, they're in this struggle between how do I shed my past culture, and how do I not be too extreme in the extent I shed that culture. So that's a challenge, but that challenge is one that builds your iman. So always see it as an opportunity, as much as it is a challenge. And that Islam has come to provide us with regulations and with an amount of flexibility to be able to navigate that terrain. And so before I get into the crux of the topic, 2 caveats. It's always easier said than done. It's always easier said than done, especially when we talk about how do we deal with our children. And so I'll give general maybe ideas, principles that you can use to help yourself navigate this terrain with your children, but it's always easier said than done. There's only so much I can do, and there's only so much detail I can provide in a short session. The second caveat, as was mentioned in the introduction, there are many opinions here. I'm presenting one paradigm. I'm presenting one opinion. You'll find other opinions. And you'll find those that go to the extreme of saying not a single holiday is allowed, and we'll get to that in a moment. And you'll have those who try to make holidays like Christmas, right, and Easter as perfectly fine. Right? I don't know if you saw the La ilaha illallah Christmas jingle bell parody or whatever. Oh yeah, you look shocked, right? It's there. You have this going on. And so we'll try and look at these issues, these details. I'll try and provide as much details as possible to at least give you all the tools to be able to navigate this. My number one goal is to provide you with the ability to navigate it, and not just clear-cut rulings where it's kind of like I have to copy and paste, but if I can't copy and paste, I don't know what to do. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq. So let's start by understanding what a holiday is. How do we define a holiday? Because this is really the foundation of the conversation. How do I define it? And this is where the difference of opinion comes from. How do you define a holiday? Well, some scholars looked at the linguistic meaning of the word in Arabic, which is Eid. So Eid al-Fitr, the two Eids of Islam. That word Eid from Ada means to recur. To recur. And so some have defined a holiday as something that recurs, whether on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, a yearly basis, whatever. The idea is that it recurs. So Friday is considered a holiday in Islam. Why? Because it's a recurring event. Every Friday, there's the Jum'ah prayer, and there are certain extra good deeds that we do, like reciting the 18th chapter, like invoking blessings upon the Prophet ﷺ, among other things. So there are a lot of sunnahs that are unique to Friday. And this is recurring, and therefore it's a holiday. The two Eids, the Eid after Ramadan, the Eid of the pilgrimage, Hajj, right, it's recurring. It's once a year at a particular time. So some have defined holidays as that which is recurring. And the Prophet ﷺ said, there are only two Eids, there are only two holidays in Islam. We know them. The one after Ramadan and the one during Hajj. And some have understood, based on the linguistic definition of the word, and based on what the Prophet is saying, is that no holiday besides these two holidays we're allowed to celebrate. Not a single one. Period. Birthdays, anniversaries, Thanksgiving, Independence Day, anything like that, it's not allowed. Why? Because these are all recurring days. Right? The second opinion is we don't define a holiday in terms of the recurrence, linguistic definition, but rather we define holiday as a day of festivity and recreation when people kind of celebrate a certain thing. So it's a day where there's a meaning behind it, and because of that meaning or that history, people celebrate it. So, during the time of Musa and the Pharaoh, they had, as mentioned in the Quran, there was a day of festivity. That was a day of festivity. I don't know the history behind it, but it was a day where celebration occurred. That is a holiday. And it doesn't matter whether it's recurring or not, but if we define it in this way, what matters is the context and the content of that celebration. Why is it being celebrated? Does that make sense? Why is it being celebrated? And from here, you can categorize holidays into three categories. One, religious holidays. Religious holidays are holidays that are celebrated for a religious principle or religious event. Christmas, Easter. Right? I don't know about Hindu holidays. Maybe they have holidays. Whatever it is, whatever religion, it is celebrated because of some sort of religious, sacred reason. goes back to their gods, has their own rituals, whatever it is. It has a religious, sacred reason, and therefore people celebrate it. That is a religious holiday. The second categorization or category of holidays are what we would call national and cultural holidays. That which is unique to a nation, a people, has nothing to do with religion. Independence Day, that's unique to what? America. Thanksgiving, that's unique to what? America. Although it's becoming a little bit more international, but Thanksgiving goes back to American history. It doesn't go back to a religious idea. Yes, religiosity kind of found its way and it became a type of service that occurs, Thanksgiving service. But historically, Thanksgiving is an American thing. Mother's Day, Father's Day, these are cultural things. And culture has said, okay, let's celebrate moms once a year and dads once a year and whoever else. These are cultural holidays. And the third category is personal holidays or celebrations. Birthday, anniversary, graduation, although graduation isn't recurring, but it's a celebration, let's say. These are celebrations that have to do with someone, a person, or a union of people. So these are the three categorizations. Now, based on this definition, what's the ruling on each one? Well, religious holidays are clearly not allowed because you are celebrating a religion, and that's simply not allowed. And I think that's clear to most people. Now, some will come and say, well, is Christmas a religious holiday? Some will come and argue and say, no, it's actually a cultural holiday. Cultural holiday. Why? Because atheists celebrate it. All people, all Americans, everyone in the West celebrates Christmas, whether they're Christian or whatever. Right? Some will make that argument. Even atheists celebrate it. I personally don't buy into that yet. Maybe in centuries or decades, it will become purely cultural or purely secular. But as of now, it's still heavily tied to Christianity. Jews don't celebrate Christmas. Why? Because it's not Jewish, it's Christian. So personally, I see Christmas as a religious holiday, as I do Easter. And so religious holidays, we're not allowed to worship. This is clear. We're not allowed to celebrate. This is clear. The second category, which was national and cultural holidays, I can't say they're haram. I can't say they're prohibited. If you want to go and enjoy Independence Day, if you want to go and enjoy Thanksgiving and whatnot, I can't say that's haram. And the same thing with personal holidays and celebrations. I can't say it's haram. I can't give a clear-cut ruling. Keep questions to the end, right? Write it down. Right? However, I don't encourage celebrating them. I don't encourage it, with the exception of wedding anniversaries. Why? Because of the importance and the need of refreshing one's relationship with their spouse. That's very important because it's part of keeping the entire family healthy. But what's the point of celebrating Thanksgiving? What do we gain out of that? Birthdays. What do we gain out of that? There's really nothing that we gain out of it. In fact, there is a problem a challenge that comes with it. And that is when there are more holidays in the year, it dilutes the important holidays that we celebrate. When a kid has a birthday party and all his buddies are around and everyone's getting him gifts, and he or she ends up getting more gifts on their birthday than they do on Eid, which is going to be more important to them as they grow up. So it's a problem. I can't find a clear evidence that would say it's haram, because we have to be very careful here. When I say something is haram, I'm saying Allah has made it prohibited. This is serious stuff. So I can't do that until there's that clear red line, that clear evidence. However, I don't encourage doing these things, right? With the exception of what? Wedding anniversaries. And I explained why. Right, so as a general rule, I don't encourage the celebration of any non-Islamic holiday with the exception of wedding anniversaries. And the sooner, the earlier we instill this in our children, the easier it is for us to maintain it when they grow up. And I'll get to that in a little bit. So holidays and the family. How do we deal with this? Well, one challenge is, my spouse. Me and my spouse aren't on the same page. And the other challenge is our children. How do we deal with each one? Let's start with the spouse. An essential part of a healthy family and healthy kids is the agreement of husband and wife. It's very important that husband and wife are on the same page, especially in front of their children. Of course, we can't agree on everything, but if we want our children to be raised in a strong way, if we want our children to be, our efforts in disciplining and raising our children not to go to waste, it starts with husband and wife. The healthier that relationship is, the better. The easier it is for them to raise their children. And so, although we might see some issues as kind of trivial between husband and wife, the problem comes when they're not on the same page with kids. You can imagine, Mom, can I go to my friend's birthday party? No. We don't accept this type of behavior. We don't believe in this stuff. Dad, can I go to my friend's birthday party? Oh yeah, you got it, buddy. Go ahead, go. Here's some $50, buy them a gift, and go have fun. Right? It might seem trivial. It's not a big deal. But the problem is when children see my mom says something, my dad says something else, I get my way, right? The child develops an inconsistent worldview. Right? And that's a major challenge. So we really want husband and wife to be on the same page. Well, how do we get them on the same page? Let's say your spouse insists on celebrating a holiday, regardless of what it is. They insist on celebrating a holiday. If you don't have kids, right, that's one scenario. If you do have kids, that's another scenario. I'm branching out too much here, but I'm trying to categorize because each one is going to have its own way of interacting with it. So let's say it's just you and your spouse, you don't have any kids. Right? We need to, although it might be not a big deal between you and your spouse, it doesn't really affect your relationship with each other. The sooner you discuss this and get on the same page, the better, because kids will eventually come on the scene. Right? And so you want to discuss this with your spouse and try to convince them. You passionately, adamantly believe that we shouldn't be celebrating this, right? Especially if it's one of the holidays where we're not allowed. It's clear cut. We can't celebrate one of these or that holiday. Right? You want to have a discussion, not an argument, a discussion with your spouse in a loving and respectful manner. That's the way things are going to be done. You're adults. You can't force each other to do anything, but you can discuss these things. Now, let's say he's stubborn or she's stubborn. Nope, I want to do it. You're being extreme, right? You're misunderstanding Islam. Then you kind of have to play this game of back and forth, right? I'll give them their space and see another time, try and have the conversation with them again. But the goal is to be on the same page. If you cannot agree, then at least agree when it comes to how we're going to raise our kids. Because again, you and your spouse are not going to agree on everything. But in front of your kids, there needs to be agreement. And to be honest, so long as it's not one of those clearly haram holidays, if you believe that it shouldn't be celebrated, like to say Halloween, and your spouse says let them have fun, let them go to Halloween parties and whatnot, to be honest, I would rather you back down and tell your spouse and tell your children to go ahead, go have fun, than to make that division in the household. Why? Because the children will be stronger. And we don't want a debatable holiday come between you and raising your children. Does that make sense where I'm coming from? I feel like I'm going on a lot of spaces here. The idea is when it comes to debatable issues where there is room for flexibility, it's more important that husband and wife are on the same page in front of their children than it is for them to try and do what they think is the more correct opinion. But again, this is in areas of where there is room for flexibility. Where there isn't room for flexibility, that's a kind of different topic.
Shaykh, sorry to disturb. I just wanted to ask your permission if it's okay. Do you prefer to take questions at the end, or do you prefer as you're going through the different segments? Because the topic is a very heavy topic and it's a really good topic, and they might have different questions, but it's totally up to you. Do you prefer it till the end so you explain the whole topic and then we address the questions?
Let's leave the question till the end unless something I said wasn't clear. If you want clarification, go ahead and raise your hand. But if it's just a question in terms of what about this, what about that, leave it to the end so that it doesn't become too intertangled, right? Intertwined.
Thank you so much.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Abdul Wali?
Because Islamic, you use the term debatable.
Mhm.
So for Muslims that are unfamiliar with fiqh or even the Sharia, when it
Mhm.
comes, can you just tap on that? Like, what a debatable? What do you mean when you say debatable?
Right. So as I was talking about earlier, I mentioned that scholars differed in terms of how do we define a holiday. And depending on how we define it, it's going to lead to different rulings, right? So long as there's room for different interpretations, there's room for debate and differences of opinion, right? Not everything in Islam is clear cut. There are things that are clearly permissible, and there are things that are clearly haram. And as the Prophet says, between them is a gray area. That gray area means there's room for interpretation, differences of opinion. Right? And it doesn't mean anyone can say anything. There are limits in terms of how you can formulate a difference of opinion. It still needs to be within a plausible understanding of the text. Right? So you can't just define the word the way you want to. Say, no, I'm going to give a new definition to the word. It has to be a definition that is provable, that has roots in the language or in terms of other text or whatnot. Right? Does that clarify? Okay. All right. All right. So we're talking about disagreements between spouses. We're mentioning if there are no kids, you want to do your best to discuss and get on the same page. Right? And if there are kids, keep disagreements and discussions private from your children. Your differences of opinion, keep it private from them. If your spouse is stubborn, right, back off for now. Back off for now. There are different ways of introducing your thoughts to your children that's not going to create problems within the family. So you feel like your spouse is just being super stubborn. And no, we're going to celebrate this and our kids are going to celebrate it. Well, now we're going to use a different strategy. And now we get into the next topic, that is raising kids. How do we raise kids to believe in our principles when it comes to holidays? Well, the general rule is contradictions in, well, I guess I need to say it. Teach and raise and discipline your children with a smile. As a general rule, when you're teaching your kids, when you're disciplining them, when you're correcting their behaviors, do it with a smile. Why? You know, just yesterday, there's a Shura Council meeting. I'm on the board of the Shura Council. And one of the initiatives we're considering launching, and we kind of proposed it to the general body, is creating a youth board that advises the Shura Council and that can unite the youth efforts in our area, right? And so, of course, everyone's excited. Yeah, this is super good. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do this. Let's do that. I'm like, look, I'm going to stop the conversation now. And I'm going to be very blunt with you. Right now, we're making the same mistake 95% of our institutions make when it comes to dealing with the youth. You want to determine what they should do. It doesn't work that way. They're not interested in doing what you want them to do. They want to do what they want to do. Right? And so when a parent comes and says, Halloween's haram, and they're all riled up over it and they're upset over it. I mean, if you have kids, you know that when your child sees that something agitates you, they want to do it more. Why? Is it because they're rude kids? Is it because they're inconsiderate kids? No. Because the thing that matters most to kids is your attention. And so when they do something and they see it gets your attention, they say, okay, I know how to get my parents' attention. They want to be with you. That's why they do these things. But to us, we see as, oh, you're trying to agitate me and annoy me. Or the child who's constantly jumping on you and he won't stop jumping on you. My son always does this. He's jumping on me, he's jumping on me, he's jumping on jumping. Why do you keep jumping on me? Because he wants my attention. So as soon as I get up and I throw him, yeah, job done. That's his goal, right? So when children see, oh, my parent is so uptight about this, they do it. Why? Because they think, okay, now I'm just trying to get my parents' attention. I feel like we're bonding when this happens. So when you raise your kids, raise them with a smile. And as they grow older, it's like, okay, why is my dad getting so upset over something so trivial? And they keep seeing this over and over again. Okay, my parents are irrational. I can't really rely on them. So this is a serious issue. So when it comes to how do we instill these principles in our children, well, the general rule is you do it with a smile on your face. Right? So, where am I? Your kids, now you have young kids and teens. Man, I really need a PowerPoint. I'm going all over the place. So if your kids are young, the younger ages, the kids will do what you tell them to. They're young. So how do we raise them with these principles? Well, telling them no, we don't celebrate these holidays because we're Muslim. In other words, when you're raising your younger child, by younger I mean pre-puberty, right? So 1 to 10 years old, 1 to 12 years old, this age range. When you tell them we don't celebrate these, don't just say we don't do it and that's it. Tell them why we don't do it. That could be as simple as because we're Muslim. They understand, okay, there's a reason why I don't do it. It's because I'm a Muslim. We don't celebrate this because it has to do with beliefs we don't believe in. Why shouldn't we celebrate Christmas? Oh, it's so fun. Santa comes with gifts. Right? What's so bad about that? I mean, he's giving gifts to children. Isn't that a good thing? We'll say, there's nothing wrong with getting gifts for children. That's not where our problem is. Our problem is that Christians say that Jesus is the Son of God, He's divine. We don't believe this. We believe that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is God, and that's it. Give them the reasoning why. This way, when they absorb it, it's not just cultural following. It's not just, oh, I'm doing this because my parents did it. Right? When they're asked, they will say, well, because I am a Muslim, not because mom and dad said no. It's because we don't believe in what Christmas represents or it means to represent. We don't believe in this. So telling them no and why we don't celebrate that. Teach them why we don't celebrate these holidays through storytelling. Kids love stories. My son always wants to hear about Shaitan. He's obsessed with this. He's obsessed. And he starts asking, okay, if I do this, does it make the Shaitan happy or does it make him sad? He understands that we have an enemy. He's a Shaitan. And so I don't want to do the things that makes the Shaitan happy. And he realizes this. And he's a young child. He's not even 5 years old. Right? So when you teach them through storytelling, it sits in their mind more. It makes sense to them more. Right? So the idea of Easter, that Easter represents, is it the death of Christ, right? That's what Easter, the resurrection of Christ. So you know what? They celebrate Easter because they think that Jesus alayhi salam was resurrected this time, but the Quran tells us a different story. Do you want to hear the story of Isa alayhi salam? You tell him the story and they'll see. No, I'm like well, thank you for your enthusiasm. But the idea is they'll start seeing, our belief is different than theirs. So through storytelling, it resonates in their minds. And then show them our Islamic alternatives. Alternatives are important. So when they see they're sitting at school and people are passing out the Valentine's Day, I don't know if they still do it, the Valentine's Day cards and Be Mine and all this stuff. I remember as a grade school student, we didn't celebrate these things. My mom and dad said, no, we don't do this. But I'm sitting there in the classroom like a fool. Everyone else is kind of giving cards out, and I'm just sitting there, right? And I understood I'm a Muslim and we don't do it, but a child can't help feel left out. So we can't just take something away from them that's so ingrained in the culture. We have to replace it with something else. How can you replace it with something else? Well, if kids like birthdays because they get so many gifts, we'll go all out on Eid. Let them feel that Eid is coming. Oh man, this is going to be great. As soon as Ramadan starts, come on, Ramadan starts tomorrow, let's go get some gifts. And anytime you're at Target, Walmart, whatever, can I get a toy? Can I get a toy? Say, oh, it's because it's Ramadan, you can get a toy. Right? Eid Day, how many toys do you want? Let them get excited over this. And then let's say you have to do something for a birthday. When I give them a small gift, birthday stuff is nonsense. It's not too much. Right? You're essentially competing with Santa. See it in that way. Santa's giving these gifts all around. So, okay, there's a tree and there's gifts all over the tree. All right, well, we can beat that. Let's put more gifts than Santa can ever bring you. And to ask them, who can get you more gifts? Mom, dad, or Santa? We want them to say, mom and dad. That takes root in the heart. And they see, you know what? I have something better. I'm not missing out on anything. I have an alternative. So show them our Islamic alternatives. Another tip is, another question is, what if they're invited to holiday parties and events? They get an invitation to a birthday party from their buddies, right? Or whatever it is. What can we do here? Now, this is a harder terrain to navigate. It really is difficult. But let's try and draw the red lines. Religious holidays, we're going to say no. Christmas party, Easter party, right? We want to say no to this. They get an invitation for a birthday party. We said that birthday parties, I personally don't encourage them, but I can't say they're completely haram. You as parents discuss what is in the best interest of our children. Right? You know your children best, and you know your environment. Who is the one inviting them? Are they close family members where you're interacting with these people? And maybe if I tell my child, no, he can't go to his cousin's birthday party, that won't only create a problem between him and his friends, but it might also create problems between you and your family. So you discuss these things, right? And always moderate. Be moderate. Don't go all out when it comes to one of these things. Yeah, here, go and have super fun and whatnot. Say, let's go we can only go for an hour. Or before sending them, say, look, Baba, we don't really care much about birthday parties, but the reason why we think it's better that you go is because, well, we want to make sure that our family ties are strong, or we're afraid that this will happen. You're teaching the child how to view the world. You're teaching them personal skills. You're teaching them skills in relationship, how to maintain relationships. So when it comes to the holidays, that there is flexibility in that regard. You as parents come together, discuss what is in the best interest of your children and your family as a whole. And once you decide, be consistent. Be consistent. If you say no, you're not going to the birthday party, don't change your mind after 2 days. Don't. If you're not sure whether they should go, say, you know what, let me think about it. But when kids see my mom says no, and then I can change her mind, and then she says yes, every time the mom says no, it's meaningless to the child. It doesn't mean much. But when they see my parents, when they say no, they're consistent that it means no, because they back off. They understand no is no. But when they see no might mean yes, no is kind of maybe, it's like, yeah, well, I keep convincing my parents. So when you make a decision, be consistent. Keep that decision. So the child, and we're talking about younger children here, the child knows that my mom said something, my dad said something, that's what's going to happen. If you're not sure, say, you know what, I don't know quite yet. Let me think about it. Let me discuss it with your father or your mother, and let's see what we can do there. Oops. Now, what happens when we're talking about teens? Not young kids, teens. Well, general rule when it comes to teenagers and adults, right, they're not going to do something simply because you said so. It's not the way it works anymore. You can't. But does that mean they're a lost cause and there's absolutely no way to interact with them? There's actually absolutely no way of changing their mind? No, that's not the case. You still are their parents. There was a lady, an elderly lady. I mean, she's in her 70s. Her children are in their 40s. And she's talking to another lady whose 18-year-old son is had some behaviors that are problematic. And so she goes to her and says, your son, the 18-year-old son, is behaving in certain ways. I mean, you should really address this. And she responded and said, my son is 18. He's an adult now. I can't tell him anything. And so this elderly lady looked at her and my children are 40. I still tell them what to do. Right? They're 40. I still tell them what to do. That is normal, by the way. That's the norm in human history. This whole, the 18 and, I have no role in their lives anymore. The person who's saying this is one of two categories. They've lost hope. It's like, I can't do anything. I don't know how to. Or they're just lazy. It's laziness, really. So it's not that they're a lost hope. We have to use different strategies. You cannot tell an adult, a teenager, what to do. That's a failed strategy. Rather, you can have conversations with them about why you think something is better than something else, and give them space to discuss that, to debate that. It's not going to change overnight. But when you approach your child or your teenage son or daughter, and they feel like my mom, my dad sees me as an adult, they'll take you more seriously. And this is the most common mistake I see in parents of my ethnicity and the Desi ethnicity and the Eastern ethnicities. They look at their 30-year-old son as though they're still a child, and I can tell them to do what they want and what I want, and they have to listen. It's not the way it works. It's not. Right? So you have to approach it in conversation style. And another tip, let them be part of the solution and resolution. You see your child, for example, this is a different topic, but they're not doing well in college. They're not doing well in high school. There's a problem here that needs to be resolved. How do you go? Well, most parents are going to go and say, if you don't start getting A's, I'm going to take this away from you. I'm going to take that away from you. You're no more sports, no more this, no more that. And then what happens at the end? The child runs away. The child just doesn't listen. The child starts getting on drugs, starts hanging out with the wrong crowd, rebels against the parents. Versus, look, son, daughter, I mean, we see that there's a challenge here. Look, your grades aren't going to make or break you. You can be super successful and be terrible at school. There are a million people who've done that, right? But, why not be the best at everything? And then wherever life takes you, life takes you. So you have a challenge here. Your grades aren't so well. What do you think you can do, or what can we do together to raise your grades? Let the solution come from them. Because as I see over and over again from youth, from young adults, when they come up with the solution, when they come up with the program, they're more willing to do it than when the parents come and say, this is what you have to do. So if your child is older, they're a young adult, they're a teen, and you're trying to get them away from certain holidays, have a conversation with them, have a discussion with them, let them feel like you see them as an adult, and the decision is in their hands. Right? And then let them come up with the solution or the resolution. And remember, to reduce the frustrations in your own mind, remember the goal is to get there sooner or later. The goal isn't to get there now. It's never now. It's never an overnight fix. The goal is to get there eventually. If it takes me 20 years to get my child to pray 5 times a day, so be it. So long as he eventually gets there. That's the goal, right? So that helps I think that helps parents reduce that frustration, that anxiety that comes with raising children on religion. Okay, and then the last thing is dealing with non-Muslim family. I have until 2:15, right? It's 2:30. That's an ironic thing. I always do this. I'm sorry. So last point, or the last main topic, is dealing with non-Muslim family. Right? This is no doubt a big challenge, but this is the same challenge that the companions had. So props to you all. This is an opportunity for you all to be like the companions in a way I can't, Brother Jamal can't. Right? We have the fortune and the convenience of everyone is a Muslim. You don't. But with that comes great opportunity for building your own faith and your own relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when it comes to how do we involve ourselves and can we be involved in these holidays with our non-Muslim family? Well, I think there's precedence in our religion that can provide us with some guidelines. And that is when Musa alayhi salam, as I mentioned earlier, Moses, he used that day of festivity to be a platform for Islam or for calling to the religion. So when Musa first approached the Pharaoh, and he told the Pharaoh, I'm a prophet, and I have miracles, and here are my miracles, Pharaoh, the Pharaoh, said, look, this is all magic, so I'm going to gather my magicians, and we're going to have a magic showdown, magic battle. You choose the day, Musa. Musa says, let's do the day of festivity. Why did he choose that day? Because he knows everyone's going to be gathered. And spirits are high, and it kind of takes advantage of the people actually being free and coming out. Or else, let's say, you have a prophet, some guy who's claiming to be a prophet, and he's about to have a showdown with these magicians, and it's happening at the Angel Stadium. I said, oh, that sounds interesting, but I have work. Or that sounds interesting, but I'll just YouTube it or just watch it on YouTube or something like that. Okay. So he chose a day. It's a day of festivity. Why? Because everyone is gathered. So what are the regulations here? What we learn is that we can use non-Muslim holidays for certain reasons. Being there, physically present in a festival that is of non-Muslim origins, isn't in of itself impermissible. At the same time, however, Musa used it for the sake of the religion. And so the general rule I give to people, when it comes to going to celebrations that we say are impermissible, like the celebration of Christmas or Easter or anything, that might be part of your family gatherings, you can go under the condition that your intention is to be there as a Muslim. In other words, you're there so people see a Muslim. That doesn't mean you have to go guns blazing and come on, we're going to debate Christianity and Islam. If you have that personality, go for it. But the pressure isn't on you. Rather, you being there and people know that, oh, that's my Muslim cousin. That is enough to justify it. Does that make sense? But we cannot go just for the sake of, oh, it's Christmas celebration, I'm just going to chill with my parents. Put that intention in your heart. And again, it doesn't require you to do much other than saying, you know what, I'm going to be here and I'm going to be my Muslim self so that my family members see a Muslim. Maybe some of them will become interested in Islam, but at least the others will be neutral towards Islam. And that's a very important point, right? We can't win them all, but we should have that goal at least of neutralizing them towards Islam. And this worked phenomenally in the Black community because every Black family, as far as I hear, has a Muslim cousin, uncle, brother, whoever. And so the Black community are okay with Muslims, except as I hear, the Arab Muslims who go and open liquor stores in the ghettos and whatnot. And shame on them, really, those types of Muslims. But the idea is because there were Muslims present in that community, they've developed a decent opinion of Muslims. Yeah, we don't have any problem with these people. So that's very important. Now, Islam is spreading the Latino community, spreading like fire. And you're seeing these challenges come up. Be patient. Be patient and know that you are playing a role. And that role is introducing Islam to a people who are it's very much resonating with them. So you're doing a form of da'wah. Your presence there is a form of da'wah in of itself. And also you're at least showing them, okay, these Muslims aren't really bizarre, crazy people. All right. So that's where we can use a platform. In terms of holiday greetings, your mom, your dad, your brother says, hey, Merry Christmas. Can we say Merry Christmas to you too? Right. You'll find differences of opinion. Again, I'm not going to get into all the details because you don't have time. I don't feel uncomfortable when Muslims tell other non-Muslims Merry Christmas. I don't see that as anything super problematic. It's not an endorsement of the faith or of the holiday, just like when they say, hey, Happy Eid or Happy Ramadan, which they do, right? They're not endorsing our faith. They're not endorsing our holiday. So why should we see us endorsing them? But if you feel more comfortable with a neutral greeting, Happy Holidays works perfectly fine as well. So don't put the pressure on your shoulders and saying, oh, I can't tell my mom or dad Merry Christmas or anything like that. Go ahead and say that, so long as they're not people who are attacking Islam. So some guy who's being animist towards Islam and Muslims and they say, hey, Merry Christmas. No, I'm not going to say Merry Christmas to you because, well, there's beef between you and I. Right? But other people who are neutral towards Muslims, they're okay with Muslims. They don't mind saying, Happy Holidays to us. They don't mind saying Happy Ramadan or Ramadan Kareem or whatever they say. We can go ahead and reciprocate that. If a Muslim has yet to tell their family that they're Muslim, this is pretty difficult. Why? Because the assumption is in a Christmas family gathering, there's going to be alcohol. There's going to be some plate with pork on it. It becomes quite obvious. Right? You can't drink alcohol. You can't drink pork just because you're trying to conceal your faith. Right? Unless that is, you can be killed. If the threat is, on your life, that's a different story. That's coercion. But that's rarely ever the case. So you can't just drink alcohol to conceal your identity. And it's become pretty obvious. Okay, my son isn't eating pork or drinking alcohol. Who behaves that way? Oh, Muslims. My son is a Muslim. It's pretty obvious, right? So you're still responsible in avoiding. You can't eat pork or drink alcohol, but you know yourself and your family better than anyone else. So you use your best judgment. I honestly don't have tips in terms of how you can navigate that. What I can do is encourage you to use your mind to develop the strategy where you can continue to conceal your faith if you feel like that's where you need to be at this moment, and deal with those things. You can say, you know what, a big opportunity has come to me. I had to travel during Christmas, whatever. You've at least bought yourself a year, right? You've bought yourself a year. Whatever it is, try and make up an excuse, try and navigate that. Do whatever you can do to continue to conceal your identity if you feel like that's what's necessary for you. And if you being Muslim can lead to you being harmed or attacked, then your first priority is to protect yourself, right? Your first religious priority is to protect yourself. And I can't emphasize that the most. If you feel like you are threatened or you are in danger, if people know that you are a Muslim, then priority is given to protecting yourself. All right, let's say you have some, crazy uncle who doesn't mind stabbing you if he knows that you're a Muslim, right? But mashallah, he's a practicing Christian following the way of Jesus, but he doesn't mind stabbing you. All right, that's how it works, right? And he's kind of keeping an eye on you. I noticed so-and-so has been acting weird. What's going on? And presents, hey, drink some alcohol. And you're threatened. This guy can actually do damage to you. Go ahead and drink it. Your life, protecting yourself, takes precedence over following every rule in Islam. I can't emphasize that enough, right? So I hope I didn't confuse you with all the lefts and rights and ins and outs and all of that. I hope there's been some benefit in what was said. And please do ask your questions, and I hope I can answer them.
Allah bless you, Shaykh Tarik. That was amazing, man. That was I could tell a lot of prep went into that as well. So thank you for delivering that. Of course, I sense many questions are coming, and which is good. So we want to ask questions, and we appreciate you really going into detail about this as well. I greatly appreciate it. So I'm gonna, if you have questions online, number of you are joining us online. Thank you so much. Go ahead and drop your questions in the comment section, and then we'll move around this way. So Sister Laura, I see your hand. I'll come over to you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
So, what is your advice for couples who have children from other relationships? We don't have any children together. I mean, I know how we practice together, but our children are all older, teenagers, as you said, and older. So they have the influence of their grandparents, their other parents, and everything. And because they're teenagers, they're so emotionally driven that they can be almost get like depressed if you don't, maybe at least acknowledge something like with one gift. How do you suggest that we kind of like unify on that? Or should we deal with it separately because there are other parents and other grandparents involved?
So you mean they're feeling pressure in buying their children gifts on these holidays?
Not necessarily buying gifts. I mean, maybe not for Christmas, because I think at least my family understands Christmas is out. But, other of the debatable holidays, like birthdays and stuff, sometimes teenagers, especially young girls, can, almost feel like, well, dad got me a present or Nana got me a present.
So, very valid point. So as I mentioned, birthday isn't a clear haram. I don't encourage it because of what I'm afraid it could lead to. But it's clear that there is a important role that buying her or him a gift has in terms of that circumstance and that situation. So I would tell them, go ahead and buy them a gift. Right? Birthdays aren't a big deal. They're not a big deal if a Muslim celebrates it. It only becomes problematic when it just, the celebration is above and beyond. It's like some people do super birthday party and everyone, it's your day. And because you see how it begins to dilute the more important holidays. But if you feel like, I have to buy a gift for my child on their birthday, on whatever, in order to maintain my relationship with them, that takes precedence, because so long as you have a relationship with them, they have a window into Islam. And to us, that is more important than debatable holidays and celebrations. What do you mean? I mean, what's going on in the family? Why are they not unified?
Sorry. I mean, just like between him and I, clearly he has been in Islam longer than I have. So I'm kind of new to all of this, and I'm doing my best to follow along with everything. And I want us to have a common, understanding of what we're going to do. But I also understand that, we have children with other people.
Right.
So I know that that can be a big thing on how it's influenced and how we might have to deal with it.
Sure. Hopefully I understood your question correctly. The concern, or why, when it's important for parents to be on the same page, when the kids are there and they're present and they're seeing this.
Yeah.
But if each spouse has kids from different relationships, then what I'd recommend is that each spouse gives their spouse the space to raise their kids, right? And not to interfere with that, right? I mean, they can provide recommendations, they can provide advice. I think that there's a better way of dealing. That's nothing wrong with that. But it's, in the end, ultimately the parent's decision in terms of how they're going to engage the parent, and in terms of how they're going to engage their kids from other relationships. If that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
As you know, I live in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole nation in itself.
Yeah.
And I come to Orange County because I want to be taught correctly.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion. But I will say that in LA for Thanksgiving, and people could dress it up as they will, it's a day of celebrating genocide. And what was taken from us was only like 20% of this land, and the treaties that were violated were the remainder. So I'm really disappointed in OC Muslims when I see on social media or whatever saying it's a turkey, but it's not Thanksgiving. Yes, it is. Let's stop it. Mm-hmm. And Shaykh, I was about to say Tarik, Shaykh Jabril Spade is the only one that will call it out that I've seen since I've been Muslim. And even I've been around here, but I found my way here through the Nation of Islam. That would have definitely never happened. Mm-hmm. And we know the correct teachings now to date. For me, I do. So I have issue with this. It's a total celebration of genocide, no matter how people dress it up. And it's not okay. And I just seen it yesterday on social media, OC Muslims. How is this happening?
No, I definitely agree with what you're saying, right? And I don't have anything to add. I mean, if the research shows, and I haven't done the research, that's why I'm saying if. I'm not questioning what you're saying, but if it's clear that Thanksgiving has a very dark background to it, dark context to it, that's celebrating kind of murder of millions of people, then yeah, that's very problematic. Right? Very, very problematic. It's not something that should be celebrated. And in terms of, it's Thanksgiving Day, and we're having a Thanksgiving dinner, but we're not celebrating Thanksgiving. And that's just dishonesty. I see this a lot. Right? I see this a lot in Muslim communities. So thank you for sharing that.
Sheikh, on that as well, thank you, Sister Shaykh, for that. And you had mentioned something as well. Some people might say it's not Thanksgiving, but they got the turkey, they got this. But one of the things I've heard as well is that it's just they're just as a family getting together simply because it's a day off, and in this corporate lifestyle and this kind of 9 to 5, 9 to 6, it's just an opportunity for a majority of the family to get together. Being that that's a day off for most people from work, if they go in with that intention,
If
yeah,
if they're sincere about it, fine, right? But I just don't buy it because we're off every Saturday and Sunday. And we're off Friday too. Right? And even saying, oh, we'll gather on Friday instead of that Thursday is, I mean, it's still kind of, you see that dishonesty. There's a dishonesty. Just say it. Just say it. I mean, I think it's less problematic when a Muslim comes and says, you know what, I'm doing something wrong. May Allah forgive me. Than someone who tries to, oh no, I'm not doing anything wrong. And this is my intention and all of that stuff.
Thank you. I saw a hand here.
Oh yeah, so now this is a new thing. We'll do a week before Thanksgiving, right? It's still Thanksgiving.
But they will call it like Friendsgiving.
Friendsgiving and it is.
Just a quick question. Assalamualaikum.
Welcome, Sarah.
So when you mentioned about birthdays for like kids, right? So what if it's a cultural thing? Like for example, for Americans, Sweet 16 and they celebrate really big. And then for Hispanic, it's quinceañeras. Like for us Filipinos, we do 18th birthday. I mean, I'm going to tell my daughter, because my daughter's 14, that she's not going to get that. But what if this other side of her family, like which is the dad's side, celebrated it for her? And I mean, is that going to be okay?
So when you're dealing with situations, always try and visualize how large is the wave that you look to stand in front of. Right? So how adamant is his side of the family in throwing this? Can you beat that wave? If the answer is no, then don't be a fool and stand up in front of the wave. You'll be crushed. Rather, ride the wave. So you see that, father says she's having her 18th birthday, whatever they want to call it, and it's going to happen. I reserved everything and I did everything. Ride that wave. I say, can't believe you're an adult now. I'm so happy for you. Right? It's better just maintaining that being happy for her for that day. And then you win over that type of relationship, and then you can steer her in different ways or in more important ways for the future. Sure.
So next month, I don't want to say the date, but I am invited to a. Can I ask? Yeah. I'm invited to we call it the
A what?
Like the 18th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a big celebration. So they're actually they're gonna it's a big one. It's like a wedding. It's a formal like event, and I'm part of it. I'm part of the 18th Benjamin gift. And now that you're telling me now I said yes. I RSVP'd like 2 months ago. Is that permanent?
Just go.
It's okay.
Go. I remember I said birthdays aren't that big of a deal. I don't encourage a celebration of birthday. I'm not saying it's haram. Does that make sense? Right. So look, this is life. You're going to have to deal with these things. The sooner we mature to where I realize I have to navigate certain things, there's always going to be some forces that are more powerful than me. I can't try and stand in front of that. I see parents, they try and stand in front of things that I know you cannot stand in front of that. You're going to be crushed, and they are crushed. Right? So it's not a big deal. And again, any other, let's say you're invited in the future to some 18th birthday party, sweet 16, whatever it is, right? And these are important people in your life. These are family members. It's your niece or your nephew or your brother, whoever it is, right? It doesn't have to be either yes or no, 100% yes or 100% no. There's a 50% where I show up for a little bit, right? I have dinner with them. I present my gifts. I'm so happy for you. You stay there for an hour and they say, I have to leave. I have things to do. And then you just leave. That's it. You showed your face, right? You paid your respects. You keep the family ties together. You keep the relationships, but you don't fully participate in what's going on.
Perfect. I'll take, if it's okay, we have 2 questions here online. Shaykhna, the first question is regarding a celebration called, forgive me, in Dia de los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead. I think is maybe prominent within the Latino culture. I could be wrong. Sorry. Many cultures? Oh, excellent. Okay. Can you touch upon that? They're asking if, how do you go about that? Is that something can you celebrate it or not? Or
So is it the same thing as Halloween, or is it really more, you're talking about you have ancestors and we're revering our ancestors, and What,
Anybody know about the holiday? I can.
They call it All Saints Day, and then the second one is All Souls Day.
Also,
It depends who celebrates. Not everybody has to celebrate.
okay. Anybody well versed?
Shaykh did, I'm sorry. So this was brought up last year as well, and with respect to you, because we're in front of you, Shaykh Jabril did say, as long as there's no idol worship, there's no idols, you're not putting, he was really, really clear with this. So if you're celebrating Shay, the life of Shay, and I'm gone, but I'm here, you don't want to say she was a great person when she was a liar, a crook, and a thief.
Mhm.
He said, don't lie on that person. Don't make them out to be what they were not, and don't make them out to be what they are. Or you know what I'm saying? Because they're going to have a worse judgment because of what we're doing here on earth, if that makes sense. So if we say, oh, she was just so great, and she wasn't, she was mean, or she was really, oh, porosita, she was so nice. No, she wasn't. Or, vice versa. Like, don't put extras on that person. Say what it was that they are, and don't, do idol worshiping. Don't worship them. But just, his thing was just to say, is to keep in our heads, death is real.
Yeah, so that's the feel that I get when I watch movies like Encanto and that's the other one where the kid picks up like a guitar and stuff. What is it? Coco, right? The feel that I always got is that this celebration is more about, it's trying to keep people alive and ignore death. That's the feel that I get, which is problematic because in Islam it's like death is coming. And that's part of us living, and part of being alive is to accept death. So let's go with what Shaykh Jibril said. Stay away from any rituals. I think what Shaykh Jibril meant when he said, don't say this about so and so, is that don't revere people. Don't do this reverence of people, because polytheism always begins with over-revering figures. Maybe that's what he meant, or maybe that's not what he meant, and I'm just saying that. But I will add that as well. So okay, I mean, great. Let's go with what Shaykh Zubayr said. Yeah, that's what a lot of the Pharaoh civilization, the whole mummification, all that. What's the point of that? What's the logic behind something like that? Exactly it, right? It's like we're trying to avoid this conversation of death, and Islam is all about, you're gonna die, there's an afterlife, and that's your real life.
Assalamu alaikum.
Come
So, just from the conversation as a whole, my thought is, you mentioned about the celebrating or participating in certain activities, for example, Thanksgiving or something like that, and just do it and just kind of like just stay away from any extras. Like for me personally, what I do is, because I have older children, and I just basically tell them the true stories. So at least even when they're participating with their family, their cousins, their uncles and that stuff, they know what the real deal is.
Right? So
They know, like, we just went through this Christopher Columbus thing. You got a day off for some dude that came over here and like took
apparently
over.
looking for Muslims, by the way. This is new research. I don't know how true this is. He was looking for a Muslim country to kill Muslims. So I don't know how accurate that research is, but there was someone who released that.
That one's new to me. I don't know about that part, but
He
I
did it to
just
another
basically
civilization.
teach them the true story of that whole situation, because sometimes we rely on the schools to teach our children stuff, and they're cleaning up the dirt. They're trying to clean up all the dirt and hide it. So I would suggest we just teach our children.
Which was what I was
True,
saying.
yeah.
When you have the conversation with your child, you tell your younger child the stories behind it. This is why we don't celebrate it. This is what it means. And then for the older crowd, you can bring the research itself. Let them see it with their face, like with their own two eyes. Say, oh my God, this my dad's actually speaking truth. He's not speaking nonsense. And then let their heart slowly digest that, and then they themselves choose, I'm not really interested in this. Right? The challenge I see, at least in my ethnicity, Eastern ethnicities, is that what was I going to say? They put themselves in conflict with their children because they're trying to uphold what they believe is true. Like, I don't believe in celebrating any holidays. And their kids are growing up, yeah, well, we do. And then they put themselves in conflict with their children, and it destroys the family. So I want to make sure that we understand how to go about dealing with this. And that's a perfect example.
Choose our fights wisely.
Exactly, right?
Choose our
That's
fights
exactly
wisely.
it. The prophets chose their fights wisely. They didn't wage war against the world. They would be crushed, right? And too many parents make this mistake. We're going after everyone. Nope means no, that's it. I'm not going to spend time explaining to you why. I'm not going to even entertain your thoughts. No, that's it. And it just doesn't work. If I
There's
bites
new
them.
evidence. I'm wondering if you know about this. Natives had tons, a lot of pyramids here. The colonizers crushed and destroyed. And there's new evidence showing how many Muslims were here. And actually, and I didn't even know this as a Native woman, that molded our own culture too. So the Muslims were here way, and I'll send you the article or something.
Yeah. Research suggests that Muslims first came to America in the 9th century, and they were Chinese Muslims. So it seems like they traveled the Pacific.
Yeah.
And I also, it's very interesting.
And we have like 2% Asian in us. So everything, it's making sense the more the truth is revealed.
Perfect. There's a book, Sheikh. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Maybe yours. The Lies My Teacher Told Me.
No.
It's very interesting. I think like Sheikh Yusuf Estes had mentioned this book one time, going over like all these things that we were taught with in grade school, and then actually finding out like a lot of it was just incorrect. The Lies My Teacher Told Me. I don't know if you're familiar with that book.
I'm not.
But there's a question here, Sheikhna. Question here is, how do I separate my faith from my children's faith, being that they're 23, 20, and 15? My children support me 100%, but it's also challenging because they still follow Christianity. I spoke with their father about my son visiting the mosque. He's not comfortable with my son converting to Islam, nor visiting the mosque. Therefore, it's starting to become challenging for me because I don't know how to separate the two. My children still participate in all the holiday events. What advice can you give me? I can repeat that again if you like.
That's a tough one. Ask around. Don't just take it from me. I don't have experience raising 20-year-olds. I only have one child who's still very young, alhamdulillah. But perhaps a start, and this is by no way kind of the end-all, be-all, but the start is to win the competition of being more connected to your children than your other spouse. Right? Let them see you as their role model. That's a start. This way, they'll take what you say more as more important, more meaningful than what their other parent says. Again, I'd have to think about that more.
Also, maybe if I may give one suggestion, because within our own new Muslim family here, as you know, we have hundreds of people for a number of years. May Allah bless them all that have accepted Islam. Some of them decades ago that have been through some of these same experiences or challenges. I would encourage, I think myself too, and all of us to tap into those years of experience that so many people have. So maybe if there's a way we can organize a session where we can go over some of these questions and people that have maybe crossed this bridge maybe before, maybe they can shed some light on some of these matters as well, because just like Shaykh Tarik has mentioned correctly, myself as well, some of these challenges we have not gone through, right? You guys have a extra level of those challenges, if you will, but you have a reward with that as well. So I agree with you as well, Sheikhna. I think that'll be important as well. So maybe reaching out to other brothers and sisters within the community that might have embraced Islam many years ago, and maybe they've already gone through this path, and maybe something that they've done that worked might actually work for us as well, right? So it's like the collective experience that we can tap into as well. So, all right, I think we need coffee at this time, all of us. Allah reward you all. I think that'll be good to call it a session there. Some announcements, and we'll call it a session. First, of course, Shaykh Tarik, a wonderful topic, great way of executing and delivering it. Thank you so much. May Allah reward you and bless you for talking about such an important topic. And we felt that it's very important right now to start addressing it and slowly start chipping away at it as much as we can. So we started last week, the week before, coffee with Shaykh, some questions that we took with that as well. So as these holidays and or other things are coming up, please feel free to just communicate. Let us know how we can assist and how we can help, God willing, inshallah. So again, Sheikh Tarik, thank you so much. Appreciate it. The second thing is, of course, we have some, leftover snacks, food, coffee, all that good stuff is there. So please, on your way out, so that we don't have to keep anything here, take something with you for a late lunch, or early dinner if you like, and that'll be great. Of course, we try to leave a donation box there. Should you want to contribute and help us out with the expenses, it would be greatly appreciated. Second thing would be. Again, just want to thank all the volunteers for all the hard work they're doing, and sometimes when we work as volunteers, of course, during events that are not as stressful, and other events that are stressful, sometimes we might butt heads and things might happen. So just generally, I'm just saying, if we've ever been in that situation with other volunteers, other brothers, other sisters, forgive them for the sake of Allah, but have that communication with them as well, and that discussion with them as well, because we would never want this mosque growing and many of the departments growing and all of us taking part in it, and then Satan comes or Shaitan comes and whispers, and now we have friction amongst one another. So as something as beautiful as this, when we're working together, we want to make sure that we keep it as a family. So if you have a difference amongst another brother, another sister, definitely talk it out. Make sure that you communicate with one another. I mean, it might just be something that's very small, but it spirals out of control because we just let it go. So just a reminder for myself and everybody else as well. And then the next thing is, it's been an amazing weekend, starting from Thursday. First, I just want to, as you know, we have people joining us maybe almost every week. This week was no exception. I wanted to welcome Jonathan and his son Julian. They're not here right now, but the interesting thing was that Jonathan and Julian are both part of the Quran Institute. And Jonathan converted to Islam about 2 years ago, but he didn't know about the new Muslim department we have here. Yet he was coming for the classes there, right? And I had the honor of meeting him today, and he didn't know about the department. So I said, "Man, you gotta come!" Amazing. So God willing, he couldn't make it today because he had his Quran class. He had to go, but he was very thankful for something like this. So I want to just remind myself and everybody else. Should you be at a different mosque, different place, different department, and you see someone that might be new to the community, always extend a hand of friendship and let them know about the program, right? And so that they can come. And he wasn't aware at all, and he literally is just next door in our Quran program, right? So I would just remind all of us to always extend that hand of friendship for the class. So that was Jonathan and his son Julian. Then also, we had 3 people. We thank Almighty God. We thank Allah for this. We had somebody on Thursday that took their shahada, became Muslim, somebody yesterday, and somebody today. So I want to welcome, they might be online, Sister Tatiana, Brother Jose, and Brother Jake. 3 people since Thursday, which was a blessing. Today, just a few hours before, here in the prayer hall, Jake accepted his Islam. So as you see, we're blessed. The community is growing, but the support system is very crucial. The helping, the assisting, and just working together as a family. So I just remind myself and everyone here, just make sure to do your best to make people feel welcomed when they come here to the masjid. And having said that, we will conclude the session. Again, thank you for your patience. And if everyone can help me out, put the tables and chairs away, grab some lunch on the way out, and we'll see everybody back on Friday. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. This coming Friday for Coffee with the Shaykh, there is going to be a time change. As you know, we're moving down. We're going to push it back up to 6:30. So it's going to be from 6:30 to 7:30, our Coffee with the Shaykh. Because it doesn't work. Oh, I know it's just because our Friday programming is going to be a little bit delayed. The earlier we're doing the sessions, of course, it becomes challenging for some people. So just keep that in mind, and we'll have some more announcements on that as well. Thank you.